degree amongst the different races of ancient Gaul, whose resemblance was rendered much stronger thereby, than their diversity in other respects by some of their customs, traditions, or ideas. In their case, too, there is no sign of those permanent demarcations, those rooted antipathies, and that impossibility of unity which are observable amongst peoples whose original moral condition is really very different. In Asia, Africa, and America, the English, the Dutch, the Spanish, and the French have been and are still in frequent contact with the natives of the country, Hindoos, Malays, Negroes, and Indians, and in spite of the contact, the races have remained widely separated one from another. In ancient Gaul, not only did Gauls, Kymrians, and Iberians live frequently in alliance and almost intimacy, but they actually commingled and cohabited without scruple on the same territory. And so we find in the midst of the Iberians, towards the mouth of the Garonne, a Gallic tribe, the Viviscan Biturigians, come from the neighbourhood of Bourges, where the bulk of the nation was settled. They had been driven thither by one of the first invasions of the Kymrians, and peaceably taken root there. Burdigaya, afterwards Bordeaux, was the chief settlement of this tribe, and even then a trading place between the Mediterranean and the ocean. A little further on, towards the south, a Kymrian tribe, the Bolans, lived isolated from its race, in the wastelands of the Iberians, extracting the resin from the pines which grow in that territory. To the southwest, in the country situated between the Garonne, the eastern Pyrenees, the Cevennes, and the Rhone, two great tribes of Kymro-Belgians, the Bolg, Volg, Volk or Vols, Arecomican, and Tectosagian, came to settle, towards the end of the 4th century B.C., in the midst of the Iberian and Gallic peoplets, and there is nothing to show that the newcomers lived worse with their neighbours than the latter had previously lived together. It is evident that amongst all these peoplets, whatever may have been the diversity of origin, there was sufficient similitude of social condition and manners to make agreement a matter neither very difficult nor very long to accomplish. On the other hand, and as a natural consequence, it was precarious and often of short duration. Iberian, Gallic, or Kymrians as they might be, those peoplets underwent frequent displacements, forced or voluntary, to escape from the attacks of a more powerful neighbour, to find new pasturage, in consequence of internal dissension, or perhaps for the mere pleasure of warfare and running risks, and to be delivered from the tediousness of a monotonous life. From the earliest times to the 1st century before the Christian era, Gaul appears a prey to this incessant and disorderly movement of the population. They change settlement and neighbourhood, disappear from one point, and reappear at another, cross one another, avoid one another, absorb and are absorbed. And the movement was not confined within Gaul. The Gauls of every race went, sometimes in very numerous hordes, to seek far away plunder and a settlement. Spain, Italy, Germany, Greece, Asia Minor, and Africa have been in turn the theatre of those Gallic expeditions which entailed long wars, grand displacements of people, and sometimes the formation of new nations. Let us make a slight acquaintance with this outer history of the Gauls, for it is well worth while to follow them a space upon their distant wanderings. We will then return to the soil of France, and concern ourselves only with what has passed within her boundaries. End of Chapter 1.